Hello, I'm Melisa Nielsen. Today I want to talk a little bit about dogma in a Waldorf. Now, this is a really heavy topic. This one, and we've got another video coming too in the coming weeks about diversity in Waldorf. But, I want to first talk about the differences between a Waldorf homeschool and a Waldorf school. They're pretty vast. They're pretty... on the outside they look the same, but on the inside there's a vastness to this. And in a Waldorf school, you see a lot more teachers that just sort of kind of go off, especially seasoned ones, that go off and do what they want and do things on their own, and they've sort of shed the dogma a bit. But I think that it sort of stays with you when you're a newer teacher and when you're a homeschooler. And I think when you're a homeschooler, you have to get to a place where you can shed that and not feel like it's sort of ruling you all the time. So what do I mean by dogma? I think anything that we don't understand or fully embrace the underpinnings of can become dogma. So dogma is like something that you do without really knowing why you do it, or like having a good reason or understanding for why you do it. So in Waldorf, that might be, I can think of a couple of things. In Waldorf, that might be, I'm just going to do this main lesson block because that's what they did at the school. Or I heard this is a really good main lesson block, so I'm going to do it, rather than really understanding it. So one of the things that I say for us in Waldorf Essentials, and I tend to break the rules, breaking the rules, I sometimes get people really irritated at me. But one of the things Steiner said, is he said that the third grader or the child of 9 should understand how a house is built. He did not say they should have a shelters block. So while often people have a shelters block, the other curriculum has a shelters block, we do not have a shelters block in 3rd grade. And that's why. We do bring shelters, and we discuss shelters, and we discuss different ways that people live, but we do it as we're studying those cultures in that space. So that's one space of dogma, and that's a pretty big one because the shelters block is an iconic block in all the schools. And gosh, Melisa, I can't believe you don't have it, and no real Waldorf curriculum, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over it because I went back to Steiner's words and really looking at what is it that I need to bring my child. So yes, we do some building in grade 3. And yes, we understand how the Israelites and the Hebrew people lived. But we save the housing of the Norse people and of the people that lived in India and the people that lived in Greece and people that lived in Africa. We save those things for when we study them. Children have a much deeper connection with them when they're studying the entire culture than when they're just studying how houses are built. So yes, you might talk about, gosh, look at these different houses. These are kind of cool, but we don't do a housing unit or block the way they often do in a school. So that's one space where dogma can become prevalent, is if you do things just because you think that that's the right thing to do, rather than did you study it through? And one of the ways to sort of get away from that is to really understand the curriculum. And I know, I get it. There's so much information. And if you're brand new, you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't do it all. Then don't. Slow down and let it grow. Start with one thing, then you add something else. But it's better to do something completely and to feel it, to feel the reason behind it, than it is to do many things like half-hearted and not understand why you're doing them. It comes up often when, and right now as I'm recording this, we're about a third of the way through the school year. It often comes up around there where families, they dove in at the beginning of the school year, and especially this year when people dove in because they wanted something different than what their children had expressed or had in front of them in 2020. So they dove in and they started just doing things and checking the boxes, and they don't actually know why they're doing them. And my aim is for you to really understand why you're doing them and how it works in the greater whole of Waldorf. Like what was the big picture here, and how do you do a good job of understanding those pieces? And they really only they come from doing it and from study, from understanding, like, what was this about? Why, why was this considered here for this age? And then really stepping back and looking at your child, like look at who's in front of you and go, oh my goodness, yeah, I can totally see how this is especially good for their age. And we'll do another video on sort of walking through the Waldorf curriculum and how it meets children through the grades. We've done other videos on that, so if you're anxious for that, go back and check out some of our other videos and sort of what happens in each grade. But there is method to it, and there is reasoning behind it. It's not just to check the box. There is understanding that has to come with it. And the more you do it, the more you do Waldorf, the more you walk through the Waldorf curriculum with your child, for yourself, the easier it will come, and the easier the information will be to sort of take in. But the more you really just sort of play on the surface, the harder it will be. So I'm just going to suggest to, like, when it comes to Dogma, there are pieces, again, like all the pretty things. You can do Waldorf without all the pretty things. I call that stuff fluff, and fluff is great. Fluff is beautiful. I mean, look, I got some fluff in my office. I love me some fluff, but fluff doesn't teach my children. It just doesn't. Fluff doesn't communicate to my children, the whys of things, the beauty of things. Fluff is just fluff. And, it's sort of like you have this great cup of hot cocoa, and by itself, the hot cocoa is amazing. But then you put some marshmallow fluff on the top of it, some sprinkles or some whipped cream, then it's amazing, right? But without it, it's still pretty good. It's still pretty awesome. So that's what I want you to think about. Like, if you take away some of the dogma and some of the fluff, do you still have those underpinnings? Do you have the important pieces? And I'm not talking about, there are pieces that people would say, I just can't do that. I don't agree with what he said about X, Y, and Z, he being Steiner. That's okay. You don't have to agree with everything he said. I don't agree with everything he said. Sometimes I go, well, maybe he woke up on the wrong side that day, or maybe he wasn't really listening, or maybe he got an answer that I'm not getting. That's okay. That's okay. But when it comes to sort of teaching your children, you really want to understand what it is that you're doing and why, and sort of how to sort of go to that next space. We'll talk in another video about, how you can keep the education from becoming hollow, and how you can sort of make sure you connect. But right now, I want you to just think about those pieces and why are you doing them? Like festivals, for instance. Festivals are a really important part of Waldorf, but it can be super dogmatic if all you're doing is making dragon bread, and you don't know why you're making it. That's the part where you go, okay, wait a minute, why am I doing this? So you definitely want to dive in, but also as you dive in, drink it in, take it slow, and understand each piece. I hope that was helpful to you. There are so many things that can feel dogmatic in Waldorf, and understanding the full picture, I think, is really important. I also think that, it's quite possible that you will have some point in your career as you walk this path where you're like, I just don't think I want to teach that right now. And that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't, it helps if you understand, again, the whole and the reasoning behind things. Then you have that less, I've been a Waldorf parent through 2 different religions, and for myself, and understanding my parenting through 2 husbands, and like understanding like myself, and we change as we grow. And there were things that in the beginning I thought, oh, I just don't know how I can do that, but I stuck with it, and my goodness, is the fruit just absolutely amazing. That's my hope for you. Thanks for joining me today.